She said, "Don't use the key," but I couldn't resist. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction. It contains elements of suspense, mystery, and supernatural themes that may be unsettling to some readers. Viewer discretion is advised. She said, "Don't use the key," but I couldn't resist. The air inside my grandmother's house was thick with dust and memory. After her funeral, I had returned alone to her creaking, forgotten home nestled deep in the countryside, miles away from any cell signal or signs of life. Lila had offered to come with me, but I told her I needed a couple of days to sort through things on my own. I wasn't sure why, but something about this place felt like it needed silence to be understood. The house hadn't changed. The same floral wallpaper peeling at the corners. The grandfather clock still ticked in the hallway, though no one had wound it in years. Every step I took echoed louder than I remembered. I began going through her things in the attic: old books, photo albums, letters from a time before I was born. That's when I found it. A small, hand-carved wooden box, tucked at the bottom of a dusty trunk. It was oddly warm to the touch, as if it had been waiting. I opened it, and there it was. An old iron key, darkened by time, tied with red string. But it wasn't the key that made my breath catch. It was the note taped to the inside of the lid, in my grandmother's unmistakable handwriting: "Don't use the key." That was it. No explanation. No threat or reasoning. Just 5 words. I sat there staring at it for a long time. The attic grew colder. The silence around me felt heavier. The light bulb above buzzed faintly, then flickered. I placed the box on the table beside me and took a deep breath. Maybe it opened a diary? A drawer? Some hidden compartment? Or maybe it was symbolic, something she wrote before her mind began to slip. Still, something about the key felt important. Personal. Like it held something too powerful or too painful to be spoken aloud. That evening, Lila called. I told her about the box, the key, the note. There was a pause on the other end of the line before she said quietly, "She told me once, before she got sick. If he ever finds the key, tell him not to use it." I didn't know what she meant. I thought she was confused. A chill ran down my spine. "Maybe just put it away," she added. "Don't mess with it. Promise me." I promised. I lied. That night, I dreamed of a door. A black iron door with carvings I didn't recognize. It stood in the middle of a stone room, wet and cold. I walked toward it. I reached for the handle, and woke up gasping. The box was open on my nightstand. And the key was no longer inside. Some things don't stay buried. Especially in houses built on secrets. The next morning, I searched every corner of the room. The floorboards. Under the bed. Even inside the drawers I hadn't touched in years. But the key was gone. I tried to convince myself that maybe I had misplaced it, or perhaps I'd sleepwalked, something I'd never done before. Still, a sick feeling crawled in my gut. Lila arrived later that day. She didn't say, "I told you so," but I could see it in her eyes. The minute she stepped inside, she stiffened. "This place feels off," she whispered. "It's like the walls are watching." We spent most of the day going through my grandmother's things. Letters, documents, old photographs. But my mind kept drifting to the missing key and the dream I had. The black door. The feeling that whatever was behind it wanted out. That night, the house began to speak. It started with small things. Scratching inside the walls, soft at first, like the sound of mice. But then it got louder. More deliberate. Like fingernails dragging across wood. At 3:12 a.m., the bedroom door creaked open on its own. Lila woke up screaming, swearing she heard someone whisper her name. We tried to laugh it off. Old houses make sounds. Dreams are just dreams. But neither of us slept after that. The next day, we checked the walls. I brought out a flashlight and a hammer. In the upstairs hallway, where the scratching had been loudest, I tapped along the wallboards. One section sounded hollow. I pried it open. Behind the plaster was a narrow gap, maybe once used as a crawlspace. Inside it, covered in dust, was an old, wooden chair. And resting on it, the key. No box. No note. Just the key, placed there like someone had deliberately set it out for me to find. When I reached for it, Lila grabbed my wrist. "Don't," she said firmly. "That's not how it was when you found it. Something's messing with you." "I'm just putting it back in the box," I lied again. But the moment my skin touched the iron, I felt a jolt, not pain, but memory. Like a flash of something ancient and buried deep in my blood. A name I didn't know rose to the edge of my mind, only to vanish the moment I blinked. Lila didn't see. She was already walking away, mumbling about booking a hotel nearby. She said the house was wrong. I didn't argue. But I didn't let go of the key. That night, I dreamed again. The same door. Only this time, it wasn't closed. It was open a crack. And I could hear breathing on the other side. The key doesn't just open something. It wakes something up. The basement had always felt like a dead place. Cold, damp, and unfinished. Even when I was a kid, I hated going down there. My grandmother used to keep it locked, always claiming it was unsafe. No one ever questioned her, until now. After finding the key again, I couldn't shake the feeling that something below us was calling. That morning, while Lila was on a video call with her sister, I slipped away. I took a flashlight, the iron key, and the sudden urge to know. The basement was darker than I remembered. My footsteps echoed on the old cement floor. The walls were lined with dusty shelves of canned goods and rusted tools. At the far end of the room, beyond the furnace, I found it. A door. Not wooden, like the others in the house, but solid iron, just like in my dream. There was no handle, no knob. Only a jagged keyhole, oddly shaped, almost like it had been carved by hand. The second I brought the key close, something shifted in the air. A low vibration, like a hum, started in my chest. The flashlight flickered. My fingers trembled, but not from fear, from something else. A hunger. Before I could put the key in, I heard footsteps above me, then Lila's voice, sharp and scared. "Daniel? Are you down there?" I stepped away from the door just as she reached the top of the stairs. Her face was pale. Her eyes locked on the key in my hand. "Oh my God. You found it again." "I didn't find it," I said. "It came back." She came down slowly, each step heavy with hesitation. "I talked to someone, your grandmother's old friend, Mrs. Keller. She told me something. About the key. About what your family used to do." My stomach turned. "What are you talking about?" "She said the key was used for rituals. That your great-grandfather practiced something. A kind of memory magic. He believed that pain could be stored. Locked away in objects. Rooms. Even people. And that your grandmother, she was the last one who knew how to control it." "Control what?" "Whatever's behind that door." I stared at the iron in my hand. It felt heavier now. Warmer. "I need to see," I whispered. "No," Lila said, grabbing my arm. "She left that note for a reason. Whatever's behind there, your family didn't want it getting out. Please, Daniel." But the door was real. The key was real. And I needed to know what they were hiding from me, what they were hiding in me. I tore my arm free. Lila backed away, tears in her eyes. "If you do this, I'm leaving." I looked at her, and for a second, I hesitated. But the pull was too strong. "I'll find the truth," I said. And I turned back to the door. Some doors should never be opened. But once they are, they never truly close again. I turned the key in the iron door. There was no resistance. No creak or groan. It opened smoothly, like it had been waiting for this moment for decades. A wave of cold air rushed out, thick with the scent of earth, mildew, and something else, older, bitter, like scorched paper or dried blood. Lila was gone. True to her word, she'd left when I turned my back. Part of me wished she hadn't. The other part was relieved. Whatever I was about to find, I didn't want her to see it. The room beyond the door was narrow and long, carved from stone and lined with old wooden beams. No electric lights. Just the beam of my flashlight cutting through the dark like a blade. My footsteps echoed unnaturally, as if the walls were amplifying every sound. I followed the passage until it opened into a chamber. It looked like a forgotten parlor. A dusty couch. A table covered with wax-dripped candle holders. Cobwebs layered like silk curtains. But what caught my attention were the photographs. They were pinned to the far wall. Dozens of them, old, sepia-toned pictures of my grandmother and a man. The same man from the photo I'd seen earlier in the attic. He looked like me. Too much like me. In every photo, he stood stiffly, unsmiling. Sometimes beside her. Sometimes behind her. In one, he had his hand on her shoulder, his fingers bent at an unnatural angle. Then I saw it, an old journal, lying open on the table. My grandmother's handwriting filled the yellowed pages. I read slowly, the words crawling into my mind like roots. The key binds memory. Not time. Not space. Memory is the true prison. He was too powerful. Not in magic, but in rage. He couldn't forget what was done to him. He made us all remember. So I used the key. I locked the memory of him in this room. The room remembers for us. I stumbled back, flashlight shaking. The walls, they weren't just walls. They were lined with names. Carved names. My family's. Some I recognized. Some I didn't. My name was at the very bottom, fresh, unfinished. Something moved in the corner of the room. A flicker of shadow. Then, whispers. Faint at first. Then louder. Let me out, let me out. I turned to run, but the door had shut. I reached for the key, heart pounding, but it was no longer in my pocket. I was locked in. Trapped in the same space that had imprisoned him. Then I saw the mirror. Tall. Cracked. And in it, a face that wasn't mine. When a memory is too painful to bear, sometimes it refuses to stay buried. I froze in front of the mirror. The face staring back wasn't mine, at least, not fully. It had my features, but sharper. Angrier. Eyes darker than I'd ever seen in my reflection. It moved when I didn't, tilting its head to the side like a predator watching prey. Then it smiled. Slow. Deliberate. I stumbled back, heart pounding, eyes wide. The room was colder now. I could see my breath. The candle wax on the table had started to melt, though there was no flame. The whispers returned. Dozens of voices overlapping, male and female, old and young, whispering things I couldn't understand, except for one phrase that repeated again and again: the key was never meant to be used again. I ran to the door, slamming my fists against it, calling out for Lila, even though I knew she was gone. My voice echoed through the chamber, swallowed by the stone walls. No answer. That's when I saw them, journal pages scattered across the floor. Torn from the same book I had just read, as if someone had hurled them in a rage. I picked one up with trembling hands. The writing was shaking and desperate. It's not just a door. It's a vessel. The key stores memory, but it also transfers it. Whoever opens the door doesn't just remember, they become what was locked away. Suddenly I understood. This room hadn't imprisoned my great-grandfather physically. It had imprisoned the essence of who he was, his guilt, his pain, his anger. And now that I had used the key, that part of him had latched onto me. I backed away, only to stumble over something soft. A ragged bundle of fabric. No, not fabric. Bones. A human skeleton, curled in on itself, hands still clawing at the stone floor. Its mouth hung open, as if frozen in a final scream. And in the skeleton's grasp, a rusted knife. I didn't want to understand what it meant. But I did. My grandmother hadn't just locked away a memory. She had locked away a man who couldn't die, because he refused to be forgotten. The whispers grew louder. The mirror shimmered. Suddenly, the reflection reached out of the glass, slamming its hand into the surface as if trying to break through. I screamed, fell back, and when I looked again, the mirror was still. Just glass. But something had changed. I could feel thoughts in my head that weren't mine. Flashes of a fire. A woman crying. A hand with blood on it. My heartbeat wasn't alone, it had company now. A second rhythm, dark and ancient, pulsing beneath my skin. I wasn't alone in my body anymore. You don't just inherit blood, you inherit burdens. I don't remember how I got out of the room. 1 minute I was staring into the mirror, feeling his presence pressing against my mind like a storm, and the next, I was outside. On the porch. Gasping for breath in the daylight like I'd been underwater for hours. The key was in my hand again. Cold. Silent. I didn't open the door again. I couldn't. But I also couldn't bring myself to throw the key away. It was like it had fused with me somehow, like letting it go would tear something out of me. I called Lila, but she didn't answer. Her car was gone. I didn't blame her. Part of me wanted to follow. To leave this house and never return. But something kept me rooted. That night, I went back into the attic, looking for more answers. I dug deeper into the trunks, the journals, the newspaper clippings no one had touched in decades. And I found it. A story, buried in the local paper from 1949. A house fire. My great-grandfather, Malcolm, was the only survivor. His wife and 2 children, my grandmother's siblings, died in the blaze. The article said he was inconsolable. That he disappeared weeks later. But tucked inside a journal was the truth, he blamed them. He said they made him weak. He started speaking in riddles. About memory as a weapon. About pain as a living thing. My mother was the only one who tried to stop him. She used the key to bind him. Not to save us, but to stop the infection from spreading. I felt sick. The man in the mirror wasn't just angry. He was poisoned by grief, so deep, so raw, that it turned into something else. Something that wanted to live on. Through me. And now I could feel it. The longer I stayed in this house, the more he bled into me. I started dreaming his dreams. I heard the voices of people I'd never met. I remembered things I never experienced, like I was stealing his memories, or maybe, he was giving them willingly. I stood in front of the basement door again. I hadn't opened it since the first time. I told myself I wouldn't. But every hour, the pull grew stronger. My hands would twitch toward my pocket. Toward the key. Toward him. Then, late that night, I heard music. A low, humming melody. The same one I remembered from my childhood. My grandmother used to hum it when she thought no one was listening. A lullaby from a different life. It was coming from behind the door. That was the moment I realized, he hadn't been sealed away completely. Not by the key. Not by memory. He was still here. And he was waking up. You opened the door. Now you must carry what comes through. I should have run. I should have left the key in that chamber, boarded up the house, and vanished into a place with sunlight and noise and people. But I didn't. I stood before the mirror in the attic again. This time, I brought salt. A line across the floor. Matches in my pocket. Lila had told me once that her grandmother believed mirrors were not just reflections, they were doorways. Thin places. Soft spots between realities. Now I believed it, too. Because he was there. Watching me. Not as a faint shadow anymore, but clearly, sharper. Like he'd solidified. His face was calm, composed, but wrong. His eyes weren't mine. They were deeper. Bottomless. And then he spoke. Daniel. My name, in my own voice, but not mine. I didn't answer. You opened it, he said. You let me in. I've waited so long. I stepped back. My heart beat like a drum in my chest, but my body didn't move the way I wanted it to. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from pressure. Internal pressure. Like something inside was pushing out. You're not real, I whispered. He tilted his head. Then why do you remember things that never happened to you? A flash, a memory, a fire spreading across wooden floorboards. Screams. Holding a crying child who wouldn't stop coughing. Turning toward the stairs and seeing a shadow watching from the doorway. My legs buckled. I dropped to my knees, gasping. The memory wasn't mine. He crouched inside the mirror, meeting me at eye level. She locked me away, he said. But not all of me. She couldn't. You're proof of that. You were born with the rest. Another flash. Me as a child, sitting on my grandmother's lap. Her hands wrapped tight around mine. Whispering in my ear, if you ever feel like there's something inside you, don't listen to it. It's not you. It's him. She knew. All this time, she'd known. I staggered to my feet, fury and fear twisting in my chest. What do you want from me? He smiled. I want you to remember everything. And with those words, the mirror shattered, not with sound, but with silence. A fracture across its surface, spiderwebbing out until his image split and reformed into dozens of copies. Each one moving differently. Each one laughing. Behind me, the iron key fell from my pocket. It slid across the floor. Stopped at the attic trapdoor. And turned. The door creaked open by itself. From below, something climbed the stairs. You can't destroy what you carry. You can only choose what to become. The trapdoor to the attic yawned open. Cold air spilled up from the darkness, thick with the scent of earth, smoke, and something older, like dust soaked in sorrow. I backed away, eyes fixed on the opening. The mirror behind me was silent again, fractured but no longer moving. Whatever had spoken through it, it was done hiding. The thing climbing the stairs wasn't loud. Its movements were slow, deliberate, like something waking from centuries of sleep. The steps groaned, not under weight, but under memory. Because that's what this house was. A tomb of memory. A mausoleum for forgotten guilt and pain passed from one generation to the next, sealed inside walls and doors and bones. I saw fingers first, long, grayish, the nails cracked and blackened. Then a face, half human, half shadow. Not my great-grandfather anymore. Not anyone. It was what was left after too many memories had consumed the mind. A shape made of every wound no one wanted to carry. I reached for the key, but it wasn't in my pocket. It was in my hand. My fingers were wrapped so tightly around it that the teeth of the iron had drawn blood. But I didn't feel pain. Only heat. The key was pulsing now, like a heart. A second heart. Let me in, the thing whispered. Let me be remembered. Its voice wasn't cruel, it was desperate. That's when I realized the truth. The key didn't just unlock doors. It absorbed what people couldn't carry. Pain. Rage. Fear. But someone had to hold it. Someone had to become the vessel. And that's what I was now. I had a choice. Let it in fully, and lose myself. Or lock it away again, and live with it. Always. I turned the key in my palm, whispered the words I didn't know I knew. Ancient syllables. The kind you don't learn, you remember. The thing stopped. Its eyes widened. I stepped forward and drove the key into the attic floor. A wind roared through the house, shaking the walls, the ceiling, the bones of every memory this place had ever held. The shadow shrieked, but it wasn't rage. It was relief. And then, silence. The trapdoor was shut again. The mirror went still. I stood alone, the attic floor now scarred with a strange symbol burned into the wood. The key had vanished. Or maybe, it had gone inside me. I could still feel its shape in my chest. Lila returned the next day. She didn't ask questions. She just looked into my eyes, and knew. "You did it, didn't you?" she whispered. I nodded. "He's not gone. But he's quiet now." She took my hand. "Let's go." We left the house. Locked the door. Walked away. But I know one day, someone will come back. Someone who finds the key again. And when they do, I hope they hear her voice, the same way I did. Don't use the key.